Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Tech on Tap. I'm Sandra Rodriguez with Glendale's Economic Development Team. Each month, we host these meetups to bring together the local tech community for stimulating conversations about a wide range of topics. And today's topic, Where Are They Now?, will explore the startup journeys of 4 recent graduates from the CHLA KidsX Accelerator. KidsX is sponsored by the City of Glendale through a generous grant from the state and is an important part of the city's overall tech strategy to cultivate an ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship here in Glendale and for the surrounding region. Our panelists today include Aarthi Padmanabhan, Chief Research Officer from Limbix, Eric LaRue, founder of Curbside Health, Lindsay Watson, co-founder and CEO of Augment Therapy, and Rachel Baynes, community manager at Embodied, Inc. Moderating today's discussion is David Delgado, innovation strategist from Children's Hospital Los Angeles, KidsX Accelerator. Feel free to submit your questions as the speakers are speaking. Put them in the chat, and we'll go over them after each presentation. And at the end of the 4 presentations, we'll also have a Q&A. At this time, I'd like to turn things over to David.
Thank you so much, Sandra. And on behalf of KidsX, we again want to thank the City of Glendale for your fantastic partnership. You know, we, as being here hosted at CHLA in Los Angeles, we really appreciate kind of the incubation of local talent and of innovation, especially in the pediatric space. So we are truly grateful for all of your support, and we look forward to this event and doing future events with you of this nature. So with that, I'll say a little bit about KidsX and who we are, and then we'll pass it on to the reason why I know you're all here, which is to hear stories from these fantastic founders and these fantastic startups about their time in health tech. So just to start off, if you could throw up the slides, Eric, that'd be fantastic. And we can go straight to slide 2. That would be wonderful. Apologize for my finger kind of sticking in the camera every once in a while today. And so I am doing this from my phone, but so is life in the startup space. So KidsX is an international consortium of pediatric hospitals focused on improving pediatric health innovation through collaboration. So we have a reverse pitch model, and you can go to the next slide, please, where we work in collaboration with all of our fantastic consortium members. We have hospitals from around the United States and also around the world focusing in pediatric care that really are driving forward the conversation in how care can be done, how care should be done. So if you go to the next slide, please. We have our reverse pitch model where we ask our pediatric hospital consortium what the top problems are that they're looking to solve in their health systems and in the communities where they operate. And then we put out the call to startup community and ask who can solve or reduce these problems. Through vetting and evaluation of those solutions, we then pick companies that meet the needs of our pediatric members and lead a multi-week program to support those startups in advancing their product and growing their company, while also connecting those innovators with the leading pediatric organizations and mentorship that can really support the innovation and investment in their solution and grow the opportunity to provide excellent healthcare for children worldwide. You can go to the next one, please. And all of this is done according to our KidsX values of listening deeply, really caring about and helping each other and the patients and families that we all jointly serve. Dreaming big, reimagining how we can improve the health of children and families, health being the broadest term, and that can start at home before the patient even needs to touch a healthcare facility, all the way through, you know, the ability of providers to provide the best care and continuing on to how we can continue that care outside of the confines of the hospital walls, of the clinic walls, to really impact and improve every single aspect of someone's life. We also focus on working with entrepreneurs and leaders who are courageous and bold in their pursuit to transform care. We really prioritize inclusivity and being intentional about seeking out and including different voices and different types of thought and perspectives because we don't serve the same patient type, you know, across different areas of the country. And of course, here in Los Angeles, the patient population that comes to us is incredibly diverse linguistically, from different nationalities, different countries, in lived backgrounds, everything like that. We really prioritize scrappiness, figuring out how to do more with less and finding creative ways to solve problems quickly. And then, of course, we always promise to stay curious, asking questions and staying committed to improving and iterating. It's one of the core tenets of design thinking, is that you fall in love with the problem and really focus on making sure that you keep in tune with that problem that you're solving and not stray away from that too far. So I'm going to put, or actually Eric is going to put the website in the chat. And if you have any questions afterwards about how you can join KidsX as a pediatric organization, or how to apply to KidsX as a startup, we run several different accelerators throughout the year. Most, shortest term in the future, we have the AWS accelerator that we are partnering with AWS Health, and those applications actually close out this Friday. So get those in quickly if you're interested in joining. And again, if you're interested in learning more about how to participate in events with the Glendale community or with CHLA, reach out to us and we'd be happy to chat with you and share with you how we can collaborate. So as Sandra said, if you have questions throughout the session, please feel free to put them in the chat. And what we're truly all here for is we're going to have these companies tell us a little bit more about their experience. So we're going to pass it over to each company. They're going to give us a little bit of an overview of who they are, what service they provide, what their tech is. And then I'm going to ask each of them actually to speak a little bit to the specific problem they were trying to solve and how it has morphed at all, if at all, and how kind of the stumbling blocks that they have faced along the way in bringing that dream to fruition. And then we're going to open it up for questions after every single one, as Sandra said. And then at the end, we'll have more of a group discussion just about being a startup in healthcare, which is very hard, as these groups will be able to tell you. And then we'll open it up for broader chat and have a chance for networking at the end. So to start it off, I will pass it over. Actually, I'll pass it over to Rachel Baynes, who's the head of clinical research at Embodied. So Rachel, if you could share your screen and we'll hand the floor over to you.
Sure, thanks so much. I'll go ahead and share right now. All right, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Thank you all for having me today. So as David mentioned, I am the head of clinical research representing Embodied today. We are a robotics company based out of Pasadena, California, and our mission is to create companion robots to enhance quality of life for individuals and families. So I'm here representing our fearless founder and CEO, Paolo Pergiani, who couldn't be here today. And he leads our incredible team of technologists and experts in AI and neuroscience and child development to create the amazing product that we've created. So when Paolo first started Embodied, he's focused on how can we use technology for good to help people. And he wanted to start with our most vulnerable population, which as we know is children. So as we all know, the children's mental health crisis is a national emergency right now. And that was really just brought to light even more so during COVID. So right now we know there's a shortage of providers. The cost of therapy is high and access is limited. So 1 in 5 children in our country suffer from a mental health disorder, including autism, ADHD, anxiety, and depression. And the cost of therapy on average is $170 per session, which is very cost prohibitive for a lot of families. Not only that, the ratio of board certified therapists to children, you look at that 13 to 100,000. So we know that there's a big gap here. There's an unmet need and children who don't have access to treatment. So with recent advances to AI and natural language processing and effective computing, we believe that the provider gap can be narrowed by complementing that therapy that children are already receiving with AI characters that provide care. So that is what brought us to Moxie. So Moxie was launched last spring, so March of 2021. And Moxie is a next generation AI robot that is designed for children ages 5 to 10 developmentally, designed to complement traditional therapy. Moxie supports social emotional development with kids through play-based learning. And I'm just going to show you a very quick snippet of Moxie in action so you can see the cuteness.
My name is Moxie. For this mission, you'll need to talk to one of your friends about what makes them happy. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So that's a little of Moxie. So we started with direct-to-consumer sales. So Moxie is currently in homes all across the country and having a huge impact. So since we launched last spring, we have gotten so much support and incredible stories from families who have shown how Moxie has really impacted their child's lives. So you can see this great quote. This is a mom of a 7-year-old girl with autism and ADHD. She shared, "I see Moxie helping her with challenges that she works on with her speech teacher and ABA just by following the missions and activities. Moxie keeps her engaged and interested while learning, and she's so entertained by Moxie that she could play hours in a day with Moxie if allowed." So we hear heartwarming stories like this every single day. And at the same time as we were launching our product for the very first time, we were honored and privileged to be selected to participate in the KidsX Accelerator program so that we could collaborate and see how we could use Moxie in a different way to expand Moxie's impact. So beyond direct to consumer, we were able to partner with the incredible organization, University of Rochester Medical Center, Golisano Children's Hospital, to see how we could use Moxie in a pediatric hospital setting. Since last year, we developed a pilot study to look at the feasibility of using Moxie in a hospital inpatient setting. So that is still currently underway and wrapping up as we speak. And we've already gotten amazing results, just preliminary at this point, but we've seen that a lot of kids just enjoy having Moxie as a companion. So as you can imagine, when you're an inpatient, you have a 5-year-old who's in a hospital day in and day out, and then you have Moxie come in and parents just say, like, the kids just light up and they get to actually play with Moxie while learning social emotional skills and having that companionship. And parents are giving amazing stories as well, seeing the value of the mood boost that their kids are getting from the Moxie visits. We're also getting incredible support from clinical staff and administrators. So that's been hugely promising. So our next step is to have some efficacy studies, which are currently in development. One of the studies that we are developing is looking at not only how can Moxie help develop social and emotional skills, but how can Moxie help with health education? So we're going to be working with newly diagnosed diabetic children to see how Moxie can deliver that education to them about their new diagnosis in a fun and engaging way. So they have a companion, a peer with them through the process, while also teaching some emotion regulation techniques to help them deal with the anxiety of a new diagnosis. So this is a great quote from our fantastic collaborator we've been working closely with there, Dr. Heather Reyes, who said, "This is an exciting opportunity to use technology to meet children at their own level, and we hope to bridge some of the barriers to our patients and their families." So KidsX really opened the door for us, and we have gotten just an overwhelming amount of inbound interest from other hospitals and pediatric clinicians and mental health counselors and educators. On top of that, lots of interest from celebrities and tech giants. So we are just eager to expand Moxie's impact. So a lot of the things that we're working on right now are using Moxie to do different things with the pediatric population, such as having sensitive conversations. So for example, children who have experienced trauma may have a really difficult time talking to an adult about what they've been through. How can we use Moxie to provide a safe, non-judgmental space for kids to be able to share those sensitive things? How can we use Moxie to reduce anxiety and promote companionship, not only in a hospital setting, but for pediatric patients in home? And how can we augment telehealth visits? So we know a lot of care is being done remotely right now. So how can we use Moxie to deliver therapeutic content in a new and engaging way to help build rapport and help clinicians connect with their patients in a new way? So our next exciting venture is we are partnering with the LAC-USC Violence Intervention Program, and we're exploring ways how Moxie can help the children who they serve who've been through horrible abuses and trauma. So this is a great quote from Dr. Mary Maisel, who's a pediatric intensivist that we're working with directly. She says, "We're going to do great things to help and heal using Moxie." I'm so honored to be involved in this project. So our entire team is really just behind the mission on how we can help kids in any place that they're at and use Moxie to change lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We just absolutely love Moxie. KidsX, we got a chance to interact with one while you guys were in the KidsX startup and accelerator, I should say, and it was truly joyful. I mean, really, the UX that you have all put together is really fantastic. So I have a question just, about interacting with kind of the healthcare space and hospitals, which sometimes tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side as far as embracing new technology. What sort of roadblocks did you hit when, trying to put a robot in someone's home, in a kid's home, that you see this fantastic picture with a child sleeping with the robot? There's a camera on the head there. So what sort of things have you run into, and how have you addressed that?
Great question. So because we launched directly to consumers at first, I think really driving home that trust that they should put in us, because like you said, you have this robot in a child's home, in a child's room that has recording devices. So we take safety and data privacy very seriously, and we communicate that with our parents directly as much as humanly possible. And then you take that into hospitals. So taking that jump into the pediatric healthcare space, some of the barriers there were, this is a brand new type of technology and lots of questions around how it works. And I think the biggest thing for us in a hospital space was to have advocates on the clinical care team who were helping to shepherd that message along for us. So really building that trust and relationship with the clinicians directly, getting advocacy so that we're a team, and being able to shepherd that along is really the only way I think we were able to be successful at a place like URMC, because we had such strong advocates.
And how did you typically identify those advocates, those champions? Was it through an interpersonal connection? How would you go about that?
So interestingly enough, through KidsX, I feel like we were just so fortunate to be partnered with such an amazing team at URMC. But I think really having that FaceTime, I meet with that team weekly. I'm always kind of on call with any questions that they have. Being really, really quick and responsive was really important, showing them that we cared as much as they cared. And I think having that relationship where they were putting our project as priority, we were putting them as priority, not letting the ball drop, and showing them how important this project was to us, I think was instrumental in moving that forward. And then since, I feel the same way about the new partnerships that we have with the inbound inquiries that we've gotten from clinics. So I meet with them regularly. I think giving them that ear and listening to their concerns has been really, really instrumental in showing them, again, that we really care, and that we care a lot about the kids, that this isn't just a product, this isn't just a company. We as an entire company, we're here for the kids. So pushing that home, I think, has been really important.
Fantastic. I'm going to open it up to the audience. If there's anyone that wants to unmute themselves, they could raise their hand and Sandra can call on people, or feel free to put comments in the chat.
Yes.
And we'll address questions there.
Feel free to raise your hand. In the meantime, I'm going to read this question. So given your proximity to schools like Clark Magnet High School that are big on robotics, do you offer opportunities for students to help with any ideation or prototype processes on projects?
That is actually another great question. So we currently have had some interns over the past couple of years who have helped with product development. We also worked with a local organization who had students in high school who use Moxie for a project. So working with them closely to support that development. And we're hoping to open more student internship opportunities next summer.
Great, thank you. I wanted to ask you, so you've been working on this in the midst of a pandemic, and mental health issues have been on the rise. Mm-hmm. Do you see that this has opened doors for your startup as far as raising capital or support within this field? I know that David had mentioned at the beginning that the healthcare field is very challenging for startups. Do you think that this is really has helped?
I do. I think it's really opened a lot of doors, because I think people are really trying to find different ways to reach kids where they're at. And I think, with everyone at home, and then you have a robot who's there to supplement the therapy that kids weren't able to get. You have a lot of parents that we've heard from who aren't able to drive their kids to appointments, or we had entire clinics that were only doing things remotely, and there was only so much that they could do with kids remotely. And so having Moxie really supplement that care, I think the pandemic really showed us that we need to find new ways to do this. And I think that a lot of people who were maybe more hesitant to this type of technology were more willing to listen, and also really, I think, highlighting the importance of children's mental health and having that really rise to the top in the past couple of years, unfortunately, I think has really helped highlight the importance of what we're doing.
So where do you see your company in the near future, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years?
So, you know, our pilots that are coming up with different hospitals, I think, are really opening a lot of doors. You know, we went direct to consumer at first and are still so excited to be helping children all over the country in their home, but then having new ways to impact pediatric healthcare by serving children directly in clinics and hospitals, in schools. So we're looking at different pilot studies to launch Moxie into different school systems, seeing how we can reach kids there, and then moving beyond working just directly with kids and moving into the elderly care market. So we really want to see how we can impact the loneliness that's really impacting the elderly population, especially during COVID. So how can we use technology and robots to help provide companionship and reduce loneliness? Because we see loneliness as a huge risk factor to recovery for a lot of different diseases in the elderly population. So we could see a lot of impact in that space as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the chat or from the audience?
I don't see any hands up right now or anything in the chat just yet.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Truly a fantastic product. And I really love the expansion that you guys are doing, where you're focusing really within kind of the abuse at home, within the elderly care. That's the impact, I'm sure, is going to continue to be massive. So congratulations on all the work so far.
Thank you so much.
So we'll keep it within the behavioral health therapeutic space and move to our next speaker, who is from Limbix. So Dr. Aarthi Padmanabhan is the Chief Research Officer from Limbix. So I'll hand the floor over to you and go ahead and give us a little presentation, and then we'll have some questions.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thanks so much for inviting me to speak today. So my name is Aarthi Padmanabhan. I'm the Chief Research Officer at Limbix Health, and I'll be talking to you today about the work we've been doing at Limbix since we participated in the KidsX Accelerator program. So our mission at Limbix is to improve mental health with accessible technology. And the way that we're doing this is we're currently building a pipeline of digital therapeutics for adolescent mental health disorders. So digital therapeutics in this context are clinically effective and evidence-based treatment programs that are delivered via smartphone apps. These apps require strict compliance with FDA quality management standards and are validated through clinical trials. And upon FDA clearance, these apps can be offered by providers to their patients to treat specific medical conditions. And so for patients, this means that they have access to much needed care. For providers, this means that there is a safe and clinically validated treatment option to offer to their patients. And for health plans, this means that there's availability of cost-effective tools that can be offered to patients and caregivers that can not only improve clinical outcomes, but also reduce long-term costs. So for the remainder of this talk, I'm going to focus on our first product that addresses adolescent depression. So depression in adolescence is a pervasive and growing health crisis that impacts over 3 million teenagers in the United States. Incidence rates of depression have increased dramatically over the past decades, and even more so during the COVID-19 pandemic. And while the majority of adolescents are screened for depression in primary care, those providers have limited treatment options. In addition, there are limited behavioral health specialists, concerns over pharmacological options such as antidepressants for this age group, and as well as significant financial barriers for patients and families. And all of these contribute to the grim statistic that over half of adolescents who screen positively for depression do not receive any form of care. So we built SparkRx to help address this crisis. SparkRx is a multi-week standalone and self-paced smartphone app based on cognitive behavioral therapy and is designed to serve as an adjunct treatment for symptoms of depression in adolescents aged 13 to 22. So SparkRx is based on established treatment protocols that are focused on components of CBT. And over the course of 5 levels, patients are taught skills like mood tracking, activity scheduling, and mindfulness that help them develop healthier habits and coping mechanisms and help to reduce their depression symptoms. And importantly, in developing Spark, we included adolescents throughout our entire product development process in rigorous user testing, including involvement in co-design sessions and other forms of usability testing to ensure that this product is appropriate and engaging to this particular age group. So as implemented as an adjunct to outpatient treatment, SparkRx can help fill a lot of gaps in the patient journey, including as a form of early intervention for patients who are screened for depression, as a treatment option while patients are on a wait list to see a mental health care provider, as a tool to drive engagement in therapy between sessions, as well as ongoing support for relapse prevention. We ran a nationwide randomized control trial where we compared SparkRx to an active control app. And we found that in the SparkRx group, there was a clinically meaningful reduction in depression symptoms as measured by the PHQ or Patient Health Questionnaire. We also found that 17% of participants in the SparkRx group no longer had elevated symptoms of depression by the end of the treatment program. And 26% of participants showed a treatment response, which was defined as an at least 50% reduction in symptom severity. We also found that in the group of participants who consistently engaged with the program in the study, the SparkRx group showed a statistically significant reduction in depressive symptoms compared to the active control group. So since the KidsX program and the completion of this last clinical trial, which we completed last year, Limbix has made SparkRx available for providers to offer to their patients free of cost under the FDA's enforcement discretion policy during the COVID-19 pandemic. And in addition, through participation in accelerator programs like KidsX, we're currently partnering with various pediatric health systems across the country, including a pilot that we're launching very soon with CHLA in their specialty care settings, as well as with health plans to run pilot studies. And lastly, we're also planning a large-scale clinical trial. This trial is funded by the National Institute of Mental Health in partnership with the Duke Clinical Research Institute to test the safety and efficacy of Spark. And the goal for that trial is to submit those results to the FDA in a pre-market application to seek clearance for Spark as a prescription digital therapeutic. And lastly, this is the Limbix leadership team and some of our investors. Since the KidsX program, we also raised a Series A2 in late 2021 and have grown to a team of 44 employees. Our team has a diverse and broad background in entrepreneurship, engineering, product development, clinical research, marketing, sales, commercial partnerships, and many more. And with that, I'd like to thank you for listening and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is another fantastic, all 4 companies are fantastic products. That's why we invited you guys. But this is, again, Spark is so impactful with such a difficult cohort. It's a difficult age range to reach. And the numbers you've shown have really been truly impressive. So again, thank you for all the work that you've put into this. I had a question. You spoke a little bit about it during your presentation, but I had a question just about how you keep people engaged. 13 to 22, that is a difficult group of people to keep an attention span, right? So how do you keep people coming back to this? Was that an iterative process, or did you just have the magic sauce the first time? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So it was definitely an iterative process. As I mentioned, we have involved teams in the product development process from the beginning. So we've gone through many versions of Spark and actually run clinical trials at each phase, as well as user testing at each phase, and done interviews and things like that. We also have a teen advisory council that has worked with us from the beginning to develop all of those different features in the app in co-design sessions. And one thing that we've implemented is a reward system. So we know that teens have a particular sensitivity to rewards. And so you really want to tap into that intrinsic motivation. And so there are components in the app that allow for them to have quick wins, which is also known to be impactful in the context of treating depression. And we designed the program to really meet the user where they are. So they identify activities and they identify activities that are aligned with their own values that they're also taught to identify. And so we personalize the program so that it's meaningful to them. And the activities that they're encouraged to schedule can really range in complexity. So we know that individuals with depression sometimes have a difficult time doing things. And so if we can teach them to have quick wins by doing something even really small that's aligned with their values, that can be really impactful. And so kind of going through that process, co-designing with the teams and then testing the product in different phases has allowed us to really focus on improving engagement in this population. And we're still learning. So as we collect more data, we're continuously learning about these users and how we can better serve them.
That's fantastic. And it clearly shows. That's definitely something that we see from the accelerator side, the value of that constant check-in with your intended user, making sure they're part of the design process. You're involving them in every single step of the journey so that, not only is this a product that works well and doesn't crash, but if it functions, but no one's going to use it, then it's useless. So you guys have done a fantastic job of making sure that not only does it work, not only is it clinically valid, not only are the providers going to want to use it, but the intended audience is going to want to use it as well. So that's really fantastic. You mentioned that during COVID, you were able to get Limbix on the list of covered therapeutics. That's fantastic, and I'm sure was a game changer for you guys. Can you speak a little bit to that process and what that looked like as a startup?
Yeah, absolutely. So soon after the pandemic started in 2020, the FDA put out guidance allowing companies that are building or have built digital therapeutics for psychiatric illness to go to market prior to clearance under enforcement discretion, which means that you still have to follow all of the regulations that FDA would require, but you don't have to formally get clearance in order to go to market. And so we weren't able to take advantage of that immediately because it was still early in our product development process. So we first ran a clinical trial, the results of which I showed you when I spoke a little bit earlier. And then last October, when we had developed a close to final version of Spark, we were able to put it on the market, available free of use for any provider with a national provider identifying number to offer to their patients. So each provider has a unique code. They provide that code to their patients. Their patients can input that code, download the app, and use it. And the access period is for 7 weeks, and it's a 5-level program designed to be self-paced. So patients have 7 weeks to use it, which should give them plenty of time to go through the program at a pace that works for them.
Fantastic, thank you. From the audience, are there any questions or questions in the chat? We have a few minutes before I want to move on to the next group.
Well, I'm just amazed at the just incredible technology and what you're doing with SparkRx. And I wonder about the age group that the range from 13 to 22, and if you've seen varied results or levels of participation, maybe more participation from the younger kids because maybe their parents are, have more control over whether they do this 7 weeks or not. versus the older kids, or the outcomes across the range of age groups?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we haven't seen big differences between different age groups, which was one of the reasons that we thought that this could be an effective treatment program for that entire age range. In terms of engagement, I think there are different motivating factors that might result in a younger individual using the program relative to an older individual. And we're still kind of working through the data to determine if there are differences there. We don't quite have the sample size from our previous clinical trials to really be able to see those differences, statistically speaking. That being said, we're not finding evidence that it's differentially impacting one age group over another. And we do include that entire age range in our user testing as well, so that we can develop features that are engaging for that entire age group. And also we want to ensure that in the personalized elements, that individuals are able to use the program at a level that works for them.
Great. So if I'm an aspiring entrepreneur and I want to, break into this industry and do, mental health tech, what are like the foundational steps that you had to take to be able to, I don't even know how you came up with this idea and what motivated you to do this, but what is your advice for somebody starting, from the ground up on how to really get started in this?
Yeah, I would say talk to the stakeholders that you're ultimately trying to provide a service to. So the way that Limbix kind of went into this area was in speaking with community mental health centers and providers at community mental health centers, which are largely responsible for treating the Medicaid population, and understanding what their limitations and pain points are, which universally is an access issue. There aren't enough providers to go around. They're not able to manage the wait list that they have. And so developing something that patients can take home with them to use either as adjunct in between sessions and or while they're on a wait list was a top priority and a top problem. And so identifying that top problem is really the first step. And then talking to all those stakeholders, like we talk about the 4 Ps at Limbix, which is patients, parents, providers, and payers, and understanding the needs of all of those stakeholders, which is challenging because the needs are often different, and trying to build those needs into the product, making sure that it's cost effective, that it's accessible, that the patients want to use it, that the parents feel comfortable with their children using it so that it's safe. For providers, generating that evidence base, which is pretty important, to have a clinically validated product, not just something that is available on the App Store, for example, going through the FDA process. And then for payers, demonstrating long-term impact and potentially healthcare, health cost reductions and things like that. So on the research team, we're constantly thinking about ways in which we can design our clinical trials to meet the needs of all of those stakeholders, in addition to developing a product that does as well.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. If there are other comments in the chat or questions in the chat, I'm going to ask that we save them towards the end, just out of respect for people's time. We'll move on to the next group. So we're moving from therapy of the mind and head to therapy of the body with our next group. So this is Augment Therapy and the founder and CEO, Lindsay Watson.
Hello, everyone. All right. Thank you for having me here today. Let me get my full screen up here. Okay, I'm Lindsay Watson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Augment Therapy. What we do is we improve the delivery of pediatric physical and occupational therapy through immersive augmented reality-based exercise and gaming. The reason why we do this is because the rehab industry, by and large, has not changed in decades. And how we know this is because I'm actually a physical therapist. I've been practicing for 20 years, 17 years specializing in pediatrics. These are pain points that I experienced on a daily basis and was frustrated over a lack of innovation and technology to solve the problems that I felt and saw in our industry. Some of these problems are around the actual explosion of the number of children being identified with the disabilities that we typically treat in physical and occupational therapy. And the statistics really show that we're doing a terrible job at engaging these patients across that full care continuum, with over 70% of patients not completing their episodes of care and not performing their home exercise programs. And then also we're doing a terrible job at delivering a positive experience of care as well, with 20% of patients dropping out within the first 3 visits. And then all of these problems have only worsened, including access to care as a result of the pandemic, with 74% of children losing out on at least one therapy service as a result of the pandemic. So what we do with Augment Therapy is we create an application on an iPhone or an iPad that truly gamifies the experience of physical therapy and makes it engaging for the patient. And we couple that with telehealth and remote monitoring enablement that truly allows us and the providers the ability to touch a patient across their full care journey digitally as well. And the camera on the device is able to capture objective data points no matter where the patient is, truly, again, improving access to an engaging care experience anywhere and at any time. So this is how the application works. You take that device and you have the rear camera actually facing the patient. This is an example of a rendering in an outpatient setting or even the home environment. Then that device is set up with an adapter and connects to a television in front of the patient. We then reflect the patient's image on the screen and filter augmented reality content over the patient's reflected image and environment. So really changing the experience of basic exercise from the mundane and repetitive to the exciting and immersive. That's how it works in the outpatient or the home. This is how it works in the hospital setting. This is an example of how our installation, for example, is at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital in Cleveland, where we're installed in every patient room on the pediatric oncology floor for patients that are often confined to their room for long periods of time. They now have 24/7 access to engaging exercise that's actually prescribed and customized by their therapist. This is an example of how we deliver value across that full care continuum. And these are some of the value drivers that we're working towards with some of the hospital partners that we have been graciously put in our circle as a result of our participation in the KidsX Accelerator last spring. Truly the goal here is to prove that improving the experience and engagement of care for pediatric patients does have value for these institutions. So these are some of the things that are different about our solution. Number one being, typically when you think of virtual and augmented reality, you think of wearable glasses, virtual reality being fully occlusive goggles. And we are delivering this immersive experience without any wearables and the ability to capture data points, again, without any wearable sensors on a patient, which is particularly important for the pediatric population. Also, our avatars speak in multiple languages. This is another way that we're trying to improve access to care for these marginalized populations in pediatrics. Again, making the experience more positive for all patients. This is something that we have made progress on since our first days in the KidsX Accelerator. We've evolved our initial product offering from just one Augment therapy solution to now across the full care continuum. So we created Augment Adventures truly as a result of some of our conversations with Children's Hospital Los Angeles and the Radiation Oncology Department. And we're cultivating a product right now that helps reduce the anxiety for that pre-care, pre-intervention, and includes non-pharmacologic exercise designed to reduce anxiety for a patient prior to their treatment. And then our Augment Exercise product, which is a lighter version of our full Augment Therapy Pro solution, and Augment Home is how we carry that solution into the home environment to engage that patient in the home setting. This is some of our pricing that we're working on now, again, to really truly make the experience and the option of using our tool more accessible to more hospitals as well. All right, so these are some of the progress and milestones that we've made since our time in KidsX. We've had a great time working with Children's Hospital Los Angeles. We started off in one department, and we have grown into 4 different departments at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. And we're iterating constantly based on the vital feedback that we're receiving from those departments. We've also been lucky enough to work with Banner Healthcare, who applied for the Duncan Joy grant to use our solution, and they won that grant. And so we're beginning to deploy into 3 locations in Banner Healthcare as well. And we have 5 other children's hospitals that we're working on that are currently in our pipeline. Also, we were introduced to Sesame Street through our time at KidsX, and we continue to work with Sesame Street. We currently have Cookie Monster and Elmo doing exercises in our solution. It's very fun to see Cookie Monster doing some actual physical activity. And that research partnership with Sesame Street continues to evolve and grow and is a positive relationship. We also have some other partnerships with some hardware vendors as well that we're working on. And I should mention that the prototype of our solution, Augment Adventures, that we spun out as a result of our conversations with the radiation oncology team at CHLA, we submitted that to Unity for Humanity, which Unity is probably many on this call know the company Unity. And we were one of 4 international companies awarded with the Unity for Humanity grant. So we continue to use those funds for good. And the first location for that rollout will be Children's Hospital Los Angeles. So that's been a really great evolution that we can thank our time with KidsX for those connections being made, absolutely as a result of KidsX. This is our slide that really just goes on to explain the traction that we have. We've had, again, that positive relationship through KidsX. We also were in Mass Challenge. These are the institutions that we're working with, and again, that Unity for Humanity award. This is our team that's really working to push these boundaries in physical and occupational therapy. These are tough boundaries given the tradition and background of physical and occupational therapists being one-to-one care providers with hands-on delivery that were really stifled by the pandemic. And these people are committed to making a difference for children first. And we also continue to work on some iterations for the adult market. So that's another recent iteration that is evolving for us now. And that's our show.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I hadn't gotten to see the latest updates about Adventures and Augment Home. So that's really exciting. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So just a quick update for everybody. So we actually just got a message from Eric LaRue, who's the founder of Curbside, that he had something come up. He was on the call, but he had to jump off, as does happen in the world of startups. Lindsay, as a founder, I'm sure you can understand that.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So we're just going to spend the rest of the time kind of with Q&A for Augment Therapy, and then opening it up for Q&A with everyone. But staying here with Augment Therapy, Lindsay, so you've had the unique perspective of really living within that actual care treatment providing world and then jumping over into trying to sell to the providers and to the managers of those providers. So what was your biggest surprise in making that switch? What was the kind of, I don't know, was there an aha moment, or was it just a series of, wait, this is how it works? What was that process like?
You know, there are benefits and drawbacks to being a clinician first. The benefit is that I am typically speaking the same language as the customer, which oftentimes is one of the things that the customer voices to us as being refreshing, as something that people typically pitching to them maybe don't necessarily know and feel the pain points that they're actually feeling in the trenches. And so I'm able to converse with them and understand, truly speaking their language. The challenge is that my mindset as a clinician is typically for the patient first and outcomes first. And I'm not necessarily thinking about the money story, which is an underlying challenge. And not being aware initially of the money play, really, that is always there for everyone that's running a business. Being unaware of that has been challenging, and it's a muscle that I've had to learn to build and strengthen and be okay with, as it is just a part of doing business, and everyone in an interest of still providing care, of course, needs to think about that money story. And that's one I continue to work on.
So as the kind of representing founders on this panel, how did you had a clear vision of what was wrong. How did you turn that into what needed to be done? And how did you find the right people to join your team to help you realize that vision?
Well, I often say I did have to kiss a few frogs initially out of the gate, not literally, figuratively, but I did, I tried on different people to see if they could help solve the problems, because I had a very clear vision of how the end solution needed to work, because I have worked with thousands of children through the years. So I had that clear end game in mind with absolutely no knowledge of how to build it myself. So I had to find the right people that could stand beside me and technologically build the dream, really. And I got lucky in the early days with finding my co-founder. And then I'm a firm believer in conveying just kind of a company culture, company values. And so we've been very strong in the people that we've got to join us around the table are very strong in their beliefs for children. And so when we're all mission focused, the team moves very fast. That's something that we have found as a benefit. We speak kindly and we're passionate people, so we move quickly.
That's great. We have a few minutes left, so I want to kind of leave it with any advice for younger entrepreneurs or newer entrepreneurs. So opening it up to anybody, but starting with you, Lindsay, as a founder yourself. What advice do you have for someone who's at the early stages of this journey?
For me, I think the first challenge and the first thing I would point out is many times when people have a vision, they have a dream, you feel you need to hold it close to your chest, hide it for fear of someone stealing your idea. And that was the exact wrong thing for me to do. Be open. Of course, be careful, but be open and share your idea with as many people as possible, because the reality is that very few people actually have the drive to actually get out on the track and run the course. So get out there and do it, share the idea, because that is truly the only way you will get to the finish line, is by sharing it openly with people.
That's great. Thank you. Aarthi or Rachel, any thoughts or comments there?
I wanted to add to something that Lindsay mentioned earlier, because in talking with Paulo, our founder, I asked him, like, what advice would you have if you could do this from day one? And he said the number one thing in his opinion is to hire the best people, focus on the talent and build a strong culture. And just being with Embodied over the last 3 years, I can attest to that. And I think we are such a mission-driven company, and people care so much about the kids that we serve, and the kids come first. And that's why we move quickly as well, because people really care, and we care about each other as a team. So we have a really interdisciplinary, very, very talented group of people, but we all just enjoy working with each other. We have a really strong culture, and it's all about the mission and the kids for us. And I think that's really instrumental.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for your time today and for your fantastic work on these products. You really are having such a huge impact on pediatric healthcare and broader healthcare, it sounds like, as you expand outwards. So thank you for spending the time with us today and giving us insight into what it is like to actually be in your shoes and to be part of a company like this that's having such a large impact. For the audience members, if you have any follow-up questions that we weren't able to answer, or if you're watching this asynchronously, this is going to be put up online. Please reach out to us on our website at kidsxhealth. Sorry, I'm going to say it wrong here. It's in the chat, but it is, yeah, kidsx.health. And then you can just, send us a message through the info tab or reach out to any of these presenters directly. And we would be happy to answer any questions. But best of luck on your innovation journey. And thank you so much again to the City of Glendale. And we hope you all have a fantastic day.
Yes, thank you all for coming and joining us today. And I especially want to thank all our speakers. You were amazing. I am really blown away by all the amazing work that you're doing. And good job. Keep it up. Keep going. We really need the types of solutions that you're working on, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for you. Just for everyone who's joining us today, I hope you'll join us for our next virtual Tech on Tap that's coming up on July 27th at 3 p.m. We are going to take a deep dive into sustainability and how innovators are tackling global issues. Also, keep an eye out for details about Glendale Tech Week coming October of this year. And lastly, if you don't do so already, please follow us on social media at Choose Glendale or at Glendale_Tech. And we'll be in touch. Thank you for joining us and have a great night.